sinners and saints. Dust off those horns and halos. It's time for Alan After Dark.
Sinners and saints, how you doing tonight? Are you feeling well? You feeling sexy? You looking good? You feeling wookie, dookie, nookie, horny, borny, dorny, porny? I'm not sure what that means, but I guess you can tell I might be a little high. You know, why not? We're heading toward the weekend. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. And of course, after the past couple of episodes, which have been kind of crazy, weird, we're going to have to get serious again. And I get disappointed sometimes, but I also get fired up when something happens that just gets me ready to rumble. If you've been on social media at any time this past week, you've seen this brouhaha about the opening ceremonies at the Summer Olympics in Paris, especially here in the United States. This deal where Christians apparently assumed that that display was of the Last Supper and it included drag queens, but in actuality it was related to Greek mythology and Dionysus. As usual, right-wing Christian nationalists have to find a problem with virtually everything and whine about being a victim. The Last Supper display has been mocked, parodied in so many different television shows over the years that you can't even count the number of times it has been. I mean, even The Simpsons had a parody of it. But the only time they seem to complain is when they not only misinterpret what the display was about, but because it had drag queens. So that's their favorite target these days, you know, transgender people and drag queens, which is, I guess they equate the two. They've been deemed enemy number one by the right-wing fascists that we all know are just lying about every aspect of a person who is a performer in drag or a person who's transgender. They just make up lies. And this whole thing about the French making a mockery of the Last Supper and of Christianity and of Jesus Christ is once again nothing but horse shit on top of bullshit on top of a poo-poo platter. They have nothing better to do with their time than to whine about shit like this. If their God exists, do you think that God gives a rat's ass about some humans making a joke? Honestly, an all-powerful God that created everything in the universe is somehow bothered by Johnny Knoxville making a joke about God? I don't think so. It is just another political maneuver in the propaganda war. And we were talking about this, some friends of mine and myself, and I still want to remind everybody that Christianity and religion in the United States in particular is not just a spiritual practice anymore. It is a political movement connected to the Republican Party, and they have an agenda. And that agenda is to impose their religious beliefs, which really means religious control over everyone. I don't really understand how people don't see this, but it's very simple. Have you not noticed that when they talk about freedom, it's their version of freedom, and they view themselves as being suppressed. They view themselves as not having freedom unless they're able to suppress others, unless they can discriminate against transgender people, gay people, women, minorities. They don't have freedom in their view. That's the political movement. The only way that they get to have freedom is if they get to control all of us. And these little temper tantrums about Dionysus is just the perfect example of their manipulation. You know, I used to say hypocrisy, and it is hypocritical, but there is an agenda there. They have a purpose, a goal, and that is to impose their will on everyone else. You would think that when people explain to them that it wasn't a parody of the Last Supper, that they would be okay with that and go, oh, okay, my bad. I misinterpreted what you were saying. But to admit that you're wrong goes against everything that they believe in too. They can never be wrong. They have, quote unquote, God on their side, and God would never tell them anything wrong. I got news for them, though. They're wrong. As you all know, I was raised in the church, a Baptist church, primarily against my will. When I moved out of my parents' house, I never went back to church again, and I never plan on going back to church. The only time I might be in a church would be for someone's funeral. It always strikes me how everything is based on the Bible. In the American South, it is based on the King James Bible. You can't go to a different church and find a different interpretation of the scriptures. This is what's got me even more, I guess, baffled by the right-wing Christian nationalists. If they were to impose their religious beliefs, which ones would it be? Would it be the Baptists? Would it be the Catholics? Would it be the Methodists? The Presbyterians? What we call the Holiness? The ones that speak in tongues? Which one takes priority? And because religion itself is so divided, you know that if they were to ever gain the power to control everybody in the United States, that they would destroy each other because they will not accept another religious viewpoint from their own. The notion that religion is a uniter, to say that's a myth is an understatement. It is a tool that many people over centuries have used to manipulate others. You know, the televangelists here in the United States, I'm sure they're around the world. Do you guys in Europe and in Asia and Australia and in Africa, do you have televangelists? I'm curious about that. Let me know. Send me some comments on that. In the United States, a lot of them are preaching this quote unquote prosperity gospel. They preach that God wants them to be rich, that they deserve to have all these amazing things, these mansions and 30 cars and massage therapists and jacuzzis and big Hollywood parties and private jets that take them to exotic locations around the world. They say in the prosperity gospel that they are being rewarded by God with prosperity because they're doing God's work. But if you look at the Bible that they're supposed to be preaching from, Jesus Christ himself absolutely abhorred rich people. He condemned them over and over for their greed. I don't know how you can get around that, but they do. They will nitpick that Bible. They will tear pages out of it to justify what they do. And there are so many millions of people in this country that buy every bit of it. They're so fucking brainwashed. They can't even think for themselves and go, you know what? This guy, this woman, they're nothing but high-end hustlers. They're frauds, they're phonies, they're cons, ripping you off of your hard-earned money. And that gets a what the fuck? How the hell? I wish I could do that. Y'all want to send me your money? Please, by all means, send me all of it. I'll be a prosperity gospel minister. Jesus Christ. How do they do it? How have they managed to do this? Is it because people are desperate to find a deeper meaning than just what life is? I guess so. I remember this time there was this video, and I may have brought this up on the podcast before, and if I have, I'm sorry. You know, it's been a year. I've slept a little and done a little bit of weeds, since the beginning. But there's this video, and it kind of circulated on social media. This woman was on her front porch, probably Oklahoma or some flat state where they get tornadoes all the time. Anyway, she's filming a tornado approaching, and the video shows her praying for the tornado to turn. The tornado turns, and everybody starts saying, "See, God answers prayers." They forget to mention that the tornado turned toward a neighborhood that killed a dozen people. So my question always was, so God chose this person over all those others. So what makes God choose one over the other? And there have been plenty of people who pray that someone can be cured of cancer or that good things will happen to people, and it doesn't happen. So what makes you think that that person had a prayer answered versus the typical behavior of a tornado that can turn any direction at any time given what the weather is like? It's just a simple way, isn't it, of explaining things that are unexplainable. Oh, it must be God. And if you can do that, you can manipulate people into doing almost anything, including giving you practically their life savings. That's how it all works, isn't it? Even fascism. Blame immigrants. Blame anybody other than yourself. Because if you're a white person, you have to be the victim. You deserve all the power, all the money, the best schools, the best houses, the best neighborhoods. But if you don't have those things, it has to be because an immigrant from Mexico who doesn't speak English and is picking tomatoes in a field are doing something to hurt you. When you can blame someone else for your problems, then those leaders will succeed. That's why the orange turd succeeds. You all do know it is not that simple, right? It is not immigrants coming here, whether documented or undocumented, legal or illegal, however you want to call people. You know that it's not their fault that you have problems in your life. It's like we were talking about a few weeks ago, these men who call themselves incels. All their problems are because of women, in their view. And it's such a simple way to blame. It's such an easy method to blame someone else. That's why it succeeds. Instead of looking at yourself and seeing what you might need to fix, or could it be just the circumstances of life? It very well could be. Everything can be a matter of timing. You just never know what the twists of fate in life are going to bring to you. And I'll guarantee you that it has nothing to do with DEI. DEI in the United States stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And it is the ultimate scapegoat of the right wing. They hate it almost as much as they hate transgender people and drag queens. They demonize it daily. And I wish that they would listen to themselves, because this is how I debate the right wing on this very topic of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. When they call it woke, I just have to ask them, so you're saying that only rich old white men are qualified for anything? Anybody else that succeeds, oh, it was DEI. When they say that Kamala Harris, the current sitting vice president of the United States, is a DEI selection, a DEI employee, if you will, they really do diminish the fact that she was an attorney general in California, a senator from California, and has been vice president for 3.5 years. Their candidate had no qualifications, but he was an old, rich, supposed rich white man. You can put them on the defensive when you make them try to explain why only rich old white men are qualified and should be the only ones in this country that succeed. If woke is about treating everybody equally and fairly, how can you be opposed to that? What was his name? Is it Ben Shapiro? That mule-sounding monotone voice that's choppy. He said that he was afraid to fly on planes that had a pilot who was black. And I was like, well, fuck. Actually, you should be more afraid of a pilot who was a white man, because they didn't have to work as hard to get there as women do, or a black person, or any other minority does. In fact, everything's stacked so much against them, they have to work even harder to prove that they're capable of being a pilot. I'd be more concerned about the white man who got an easy ride. I just wish that they could actually listen to themselves, but they make it sound so simple that people just accept it. But when you throw the questions back at them and they can't really answer it, then you know you've got them. The only reason they're so anti-woke, anti-DEI, anti-equality is because they're afraid of losing their power. And they're afraid that those of us that are in minority groups, that when we have the power, we might treat rich old white men as badly as they have treated all of us. That's the bottom line. Because in their mind, everybody thinks like they do, and everybody is vengeful and determined to hurt someone else. That's how they've always been, always on the backs of someone else. What CEO could ever succeed without a strong company, a strong group of people working for that CEO to make that business succeed? You know, what was it? They were talking about it. It was all over social media. If the CEO of McDonald's calls in sick one day, the company functions. But if every cook at every restaurant of McDonald's called in sick, the business grinds to a halt. Just like that. So which one is more important on a day-by-day basis? Of course, it's those workers out there in the field doing the job to make you money. And I'll guarantee you, everybody in that company isn't a rich white man. They really need to think long and hard about trying to make the problems of the world as they see them a simple finger-pointing situation. It is by far more complicated than that. Now, you know I can't go on this tirade without bringing up Project 2025. Project 2025 is a 900-plus page document created by the Heritage Foundation with tons of sponsors and contributors throughout the right-wing conservative movement that is a plan to topple democracy in the United States and install a permanent right-wing government. You can read this document online. You can purchase a copy of it, get it for free, etc. So I don't really want to go over all of that because you all can read it for yourselves and decide for yourselves. However, I want to talk about the things that have me the most concerned. I know for a fact that they were willing to put all this information in this document for us to see, but we all know that the right wing has an agenda far beyond just what's described in those 900 plus pages. They've always had more in mind than what they're willing to share. For example, one of the ideas in Project 2025 is to install people in certain levels of the government that are completely loyal to the president and not independent of influence politically or financially, etc. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, they wish to install partisans as the head of the FDA in all levels of research with the sole purpose, they say, to eliminate the so-called abortion pill nationwide. But do you honestly think it would stop right there? Of course it wouldn't. The next goal, seeing as how they deem the LGBTQIA community as a perpetual threat to American society and their prejudiced belief that only gay people are HIV positive or have AIDS, the next move would be to remove all HIV/AIDS drugs from the market to target gay people, to eliminate gay people because they're deemed not only a threat to American society, but also a threat to our health and well-being. And if you roll your eyes and say, oh, Alan, that is going down the rabbit hole, you're being a conspiracy theorist. Yeah, we all thought that they would never overturn Roe v. Wade, didn't we? But they did. So I'm just saying that the motivation should be even more than just what the horrors of that 900 plus page document brings, but what they don't show us, what they're not sharing with us. And when you realize that they will take it farther than what they have there in those pages, you really become scared. It truly is fascism of the Hitler kind. Now, having scared you and depressed you and probably bored you, all I can say is, let's piss off some conservatives this weekend. Go out and suck some dick. Thank you for listening to this gnarly episode of Alan After Dark. I hope you're pissed off, you're thinking about things, and considering what our future could be. Remember, take life by the balls and be real. We'll see you soon.